almost all atheists are actually agnostics in the sense that, given the opportunity, give me proof of God, I will accept him. And I don't think there's anybody talking on this session right now that will disagree to that. That's literally a position that we hold, generally. And, with that in mind, we're literally just sitting back. We're sitting on the side fence, essentially. We're in the bleachers going, I don't believe this team's going to win. And it's not because I don't believe in them. It's because I've had no reason to believe in them. We're talking about a house league team versus professionals here, and, they're not doing so well. This score's 72-0 in the third quarter, good luck. But nonetheless, they still stand a chance, fair enough. And that's where God sits, at least with me. God still stands a chance at fucking winning this game, fair enough. But the fact that I'm just giving him the notion that or giving theists, giving fans of the other side the notion that God might not win this game in any kind of theological or applicable fucking debate, essentially, that we're having. And that's discomforting to a lot of people. If you believe God's going to win this game, it's sort of like, to make a pretty fucked up analogy, it's like Toronto, where I live. Our fan base for the Maple Leafs, the Toronto Maple Leafs, is wholehearted. We're sitting there supporting the Leafs no matter what. We believe in this team, even though we know for a fact they're not going to make the playoffs and they're going to fail epically again because they fucking suck. We're still sitting there supporting them, no matter what. And that's where I find a lot of theists sitting for God. They're supporting a team that they know simply can't win.
Yeah, I know I'm in the same category, but the idea of there's definitely some definitely some versions of God that can be instantly dismissed because we have proof that is inaccurate or certain. For example, the literal version of the Bible, we know that is made up because there's we just have so much proof, like the Genesis account, the creation account. That's bullshit. The flood is bullshit. The same thing goes for other literal interpretations of other biblical texts. We know all those are bullshit. What's left? There's room left for a deistic God, or a God that can interfere but won't, or a God that can't interfere. That kind of God, not a literal Christian God, not a literal, you know what I'm trying to say there. It's not biblical literalism or literal taking of any religious text that I've come across anyway. I can't say that for certainty because I haven't come across it, but so far no religious text that I've seen can be substantiated or have even been flat out disproven in the claims that they've made, the testable claims.
I do have to ask to Warrior Christian is, I made this point earlier in another conversation, is that if, obviously you believe that God can do anything, he is omnipotent, yep, so there, is there anything that can oppose the will of God? Anything at all? Is there anything at all that can oppose the will of God? Okay, fine. Call him in. I want to ask. I want to hear him talk about this, please.
I'll shut up for this session. Sorry, guys.
I haven't talked to him much, so yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, so call him in, and I want to hear his answer on this. Is there anything in the universe that can oppose the will of God?
Just so you guys know, I'm voting for him. I think he's going to win this.
That's a smart vote.
Okay, come on. Answer, please.
For the Idiot Award, Max Mann.
Good one. Okay, so your question was, can anyone go against the will of God? Or
can anything go or act against the will of God?
Well, clearly it can, because obviously it was not his will for Eve to eat the fruit. Obviously the serpent managed to get that up on him. So he acts anyway. In the narrative of Genesis, he acts like this. But you have to also think he must have ordained it. He must have, prearranged this to happen, because he is the first cause of everything. So it's hard to answer.
No. So you're basically saying that what you essentially just said there, that it was against the will of God, but God prearranged it so it was in the will of God. So you basically said it was the will of God and wasn't the will of God. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. You need to explain your point further. Is there anything or any action that anybody or anything can take that directly opposes the actual will of God?
No. And what I said was, it appears so because he acts like it. He gets rather pissed off in Genesis towards the humans, and he of course curses them with sin. I never said that he did and he didn't as like a contradiction. I said so it would appear. But I don't know, it would seem that like God has this personality where he acts like it isn't the case. But objectively speaking, he must have the power to be in control of everything. And so no, I don't think anything can affect his will.
Okay, fair enough. So let's say that is the case. I'm not even going to go into the fact that if it was his will, why would he act pissed off in the first place? I'm not even going to go into that. If it was the case, then is there anything in between myself, Zulu, Kitch, or Maxman? Is there anything that we can do that is against the will of God? If God wills us and wants us to love him and to be in heaven, is there anything that we can do to avoid that definitive outcome? It will happen if God wills it so. Would you not agree?
It's kind of hard to answer. I mean, like in Exodus, when it documents Pharaoh, he does evidently annoy God, but at the same time, God then says he's going to harden his heart. So it seems that like once Pharaoh crosses the line and does something wrong, God actually makes it very hard for him to set things straight, as he says, the hardening of the heart. I know that's not much of an answer, but it's a rather hard question.
So would you say that me becoming an atheist is part of God's will?
Well, yes, but I don't think that the initial thing where you cross the line wouldn't have been his will. But as I said with Pharaoh, once Pharaoh crossed the line, he hardened his heart by his own omission. He quotes this, he says this many times. So I think it's likely that once you rejected God on the first degree, he made it very hard for you to come back in touch with him, and he's built this ego within you where you simply could never accept it.
Okay, so you're saying that the point in which I became an atheist was the point in which I defied the direct will of God. That in itself says that God is not omnipotent, because there was an instant, even if it was just one, in myself, out of the entirety of the 600 billion people that have ever lived on this planet, there is one instant in which my will has directly gone and contradicted the will of God.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that he does construct everything, even though he acts like he's rather annoyed by certain events happening, and he acts like it was against his will to happen. I think that he's, acting in the same way that my theory is, like, when we write plays and movies, the characters in those plays and movies, even though we know that they've been scripted, we get pissed off at them. And I think it's a situation, but he has to be in control of everything, otherwise he's not much of a god, an omnipotent god anyway. So I'm going to answer no.
Okay, fair enough. To use your point, if we are all God, if we are all part of God's plan, and we are all the way that God plans us to be, then why do you feel the need to tell us all that we are acting against God's will in being atheist? I wanted to keep on this point because it makes what you're saying contradicts itself in itself, in that you're saying that being an atheist is wrong, it's immoral, even though you've possibly not used those words. That's what you believe on your own stance, that what we are doing is not right because what the path that you have chosen is right, so what we are doing is not right, and therefore it's against the will of God. But then in essence, you have also said as well that what we are doing is the will of God because everything is the will of God. Therefore, no matter what you say, no matter what I do or what I say or anybody else says, we are all part of God's plan, whether we believe in him or not. And if we are all part of God's plan, then we are all going to be doing what he wants. And if we all do what he wants, we will all be in heaven. Because the idea is with hell, if we don't do what he wants, then we will be in hell. Because we are scripted to do what he wants, we will inevitably end in heaven, regardless if we're atheist, Muslim, Shintoistic, Hinduistic, Buddhist, or anything else. There is no chance of anybody ending up in hell, because there is no chance, in your own definition, that there is anything that can directly contradict the will of God. And that is my point that definitively drove me to atheism. If I can't go past that point and I can't prove that if God is omnipotent and I can somehow act against him, there is no point in what I say or do, then there is no point in God as a concept even existing.
Well, yes, there is. Just because we can't quite comprehend it doesn't make it untrue, and just because you don't think it makes sense likewise, that doesn't make it untrue. Firstly, you talked about the contradiction. I'm being quite as clear as I can. It only feels like it is, but in actual fact, it isn't. This is all pre-planned, and I feel the need to proselytize or attempt to spread